Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it does appear that there's another video about Echoes, the Echo farming experience. It's tedious, it has problems, Echoes are the worst gear in gacha gaming. How can it be improved? And it's by none other than Vars2 himself. Just as a bit of like a disclosure at the start of the video, I think Echoes are fine. I think Echoes are great. I personally, just knowing my experience playing games like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero, I think Echoes reigns supreme out of all of the different gear systems that I've experienced. Just simply based off the fact that A, I never run out of things to upgrade, I can always use my materials, and I'm not in a situation, right, where I'm waiting days, weeks, months, just to find something to even use my materials on in the first place. People talk about Echoes like there's a big resource problem. Guess what, guys? When you always have something to spend your resources on, you're gonna run out of resources. You never run out of resources in games like ZZZ, Honkai Star Rail, or Genshin Impact because you never have a piece of gear to upgrade in the fucking first place. And so that's the difference between the two games. And so these whole comparisons, right? I'm not gonna lie. Right off the rip, I don't think that they're that amazing. And so I'm excited to see what Vars has in store for us today to, you know, maybe change my mind. Let's get right on into it.
If there's a gacha title that should be touted for expressing a desire to improve the quality of its gameplay and actually delivering on it, it would definitely be Wuthering Waves. Not only do they make a concerted effort to implement changes and updates requested by the player base at large, but they have the grace to actually do it within a reasonable time frame. From their quick response to their fairly tumultuous launch back in May of last year to expansions in gameplay in 2.0, along with a mountain of extra conveniences, and most critically, their continuous communication and transparency with the players, it's clear they're in this for the long haul.
Starting out the video with a good bit of glazing. It's been 30 seconds and all I hear is glazing. You can only imagine what's in store for the rest of this one, ladies and gentlemen. We might see some harsh critiques.
And the community very much appreciates it. But there's one aspect of the game that's been somewhat lagging behind in quality of life. Despite having a strong foundation and being far more involved as a combat mechanic than simply giving stats and effects, the echo farming experience was always the most tedious thing about WoA. The player base did not hesitate to be vocal about how stingy and grind-heavy it was back in release, to which, in their defense, Kuro did implement some things to make it more tolerable. But 5 new echo sets and a myriad of new main echoes for existing ones.
Show the 5th one. Why are you gonna say 5 echo sets then show 4 of them? He's missing tie-breaking courage. Okay, guys. You might be getting on my case for the B-roll, but like, what the fuck is the gorilla doing up here? What the fuck are the gorilla and Inferno Rider and Crownless doing up here? Maybe he's just showing Nightmare Echoes. Okay. No worries.
For existing ones, it was sort of a reminder to me that, that's still one part of the game that I, and I'm sure many others, wish could be a bit better. We'll be talking about that for today. I want to go over the current state of the ecosystem in WoA and how it can be improved if Kuro ever decides to watch this. As in most mainstream gacha games, the bulk of your endgame experience consists of collecting equips with an array of stats to increase your character's strength and efficiency. WoA's echoes are no different. But what makes them more distinct is the more active role they play for a character, in that they can literally be used in battle. In addition to providing a main stat and substats, the topmost echo slot also grants an active use of it, which can come in one of 3 forms: an effect, such as a buff, a summon, where you can spawn the echo to briefly fight alongside you, or transformation, wherein you physically become the echo and attack enemies. Higher cost echoes, namely the 4-cost transform ones, also grant bonus effects upon being used or equipped. More attribute damage and more attack style damage, i.e. bonus havoc and basic attack damage. So while you would have to forfeit your own characters off your presence for a second or two, the echo can make up for it by doing comparable damage during that time, and then leaving a nice goodie bag of buffs. Considering each echo and WoA had their own active, the possibilities for character expression were far more extensive than any similar equipment system in other games. Players could opt for X echo or Y depending on what playstyle they had in mind, adding more depth to character building than simply vying for certain main and substats. It was also just adorably hilarious to see one of the first echoes be a disco turtle. Another distinction is that compared to other equipment systems and gachas, where you can only farm them in select locations typically gated by their game's respective energy systems, in WoA you can farm echoes practically endlessly around the world. Mobs in the overworld have a chance of dropping echoes upon being killed, and while the number of mobs are indeed finite per day, you can join other players' worlds and farm echoes there too.
Okay, yeah, I mean, this just all seems like straight facts. I don't think there's literally anything that anybody could possibly disagree with at this point. In the video, it just looks like we're giving like the clear sort of differentiations between the different gearing systems here. So on board with everything we're seeing thus far.
Giving you potentially limitless echo farming, which also means infinite reroll attempts on main stats. This helps a ton as it removes a layer of RNG in the equipment farming system by letting you farm echoes until you get the desired main stats you want, assuming you have the patience to roam around the map for hours on end. However, the catch is that echoes do not yield experience at base, nor can you access any of their substats. The only way to unlock them is by using echo experience, which can only come from echo experience materials or echoes that have been leveled. Then once you level up an echo, you have to use a different material called tuners to then reveal the substats and what role of each you get. Small tangent, I always found tuners to be kind of pointless as all they do is add an extra step to echo leveling. Players would never level an echo without the intent to unlock their substats to begin with, and you get echo experience and tuners from the same place anyway, but I guess it's relatively inoffensive. So while the game allows you to farm unlimited main stats, there's still a limited amount of renewable experience available. You can farm echo materials by exploring the overworld, but once exhausting that, the only place you can get them are from test fields or currency shops. So in application, WoW's echo progression system is still beholden to the game's energy system, preventing you from grinding non-stop. Though there is a bright spot, substats only need to be rolled once, making the process of getting a quote-unquote perfect piece a bit less RNG intensive, assuming you're not one of those players who like to mull over perfect substats and perfect rolls on those stats.
Hey, sometimes you have to strive for greatness, ladies and gentlemen. And so, yeah, I mean, overall, I think he's listed out the pros and the, I guess, cons of all of the different gearing systems. And yeah, he's been pretty much on the mark for a lot of the stuff and a lot of the takes and opinions that I have on it. The only thing that kind of blew my mind over here was the whole 25 banging that we saw earlier, where we just rolled 4 substats for fun. But hey, he got a crit rate on the first roll, and so maybe going to 25 there isn't the worst idea ever. And, you know, admittedly, the piece wasn't awful.
All in all, it's not the worst system out there, but historically, players have expressed no shortage of discontentment towards these types of equipment progressions, calling on how tedious and luck-based it is, to which they're not wrong. Despite WoW's ecosystem alleviating a critical layer of RNG, the main stats, the very principle of having to expend a resource you cannot farm unlimited amounts of to actually make echoes usable needlessly perpetuates the endgame grind. To be fair, echo farming is one of, if not the only continuous reason for players to log on every day. Character, weapon, and skill levels need only be upgraded once to be completed forever. So without the ecosystem, what else do you spend your energy on?
True. 1000%. And this is something that I feel like not a lot of people ever really factor in, is that if echoes were super easy to grind and that you could just get everything you wanted in like a really short amount of time, what would you do in the game? What would you do in the game? You would likely not play as often. You want to know another game where you can build up perfect gear and the grind is sort of long? Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. What do you do after you get all the equipment in that game? You kind of just stop playing. You kind of just stop playing. You get bored and then you quit. What do you do in PGR after you get all the gear? Oh, you just keep grinding the same battle over and over again so you get a slightly higher number? He's hit on a lot of the good points, and I'm excited to see how he expands further on this whole grinding piece. And
I get it, but there are a few noteworthy drawbacks to this kind of approach. Problem 1 is that our ability to obtain new echoes far outpaces the rate at which we get experience to level them. In the beginning, the main objective was finding high-level echoes. While players are leveling their databanks, they can only access green, blue, and purple echoes.
Okay, this first point is already a little bit weird. We've already admitted at the start of the video that you can grind echoes infinitely. And so by that definition, there's literally no way for the experience or the upgrade materials to keep up with something that is infinite. So I mean, I don't know about this one.
Finding gold ones were exceedingly rare for the first couple weeks of the game, but once you maxed out your databank, acquiring gold echoes became a guarantee, at which point you could then begin the lengthy process of gearing up your units. Those who were conservative about their EXP had a fair surplus to work with, but we were short on tuners, given you weren't able to obtain gold tuners until you made it to late game. And to add to that, back then, there was no way to compress tuners upward, resulting in players sitting on hundreds of blue and purple tuners that were functionally useless. Enough time has passed to where by this point I think all players have more tuners than we know what to do with.
So this is actually the take that most players have. If you're upgrading your gear optimally, you will be running out of tuners before you run out of experience. You are pretty much guaranteed to run out of tuners before you run out of experience. And the only situation where you run out of experience first is if you're kind of just plus 25ing every piece and then just rolling 5 stats randomly. I'm gonna be honest, that's kind of like the only way for you to run out of experience before tuners. And if you're kind of just doing that, you'll upgrade your equipment slightly faster, but you'll expose yourself to so many more layers of RNG that's going to be far more likely of just giving you shitty pieces and expending your resources much faster. And so this is kind of like where the whole quote-unquote skill issue comes in with the game, where if you simply choose to plus 25 each piece, you're going to essentially limit the amount of pieces you can upgrade dramatically. And so that whole point about your Echo EXP not keeping up with the level that you can farm, it's a little bit moot in my opinion, because you can literally do things and take actions in game to stretch out your Echo experience a lot longer in exchange for the tuners that you're spending. You'll have a lot less tuners if you do it this way. So I mean, this is, in my opinion, this is a self-inflicted issue.
What we don't have though is experience. It takes an exorbitant amount of Echo experience to level up 1 to maximum, and the only way.
So as I was saying, this isn't pre-watched. As I was just saying, this isn't pre-watched, I guarantee it.
Way to sustainably get them is by farming tasks fields. Again, you can also find a couple through various means like the points exchange, item exchange, union level bundles, souvenir stores, and whatnot. But speaking in terms of day-to-day, task fields are the only way you can get more leveling materials. Conveniently, they also yield echoes and tuners, making them a one-stop shop for everything. But when looking at the total EXP you get from one claim, it averages out to 24,000 give or take per 60 wave plate. To level up a single echo to 25, you need over 140,000, meaning a full day's energy isn't even sufficient at getting you one echo to max level. A workaround is to level up an echo only incrementally, like level 5, 10, and so on.
Yeah,
you can
this
tune
is
them
the
one slot
optimal
after
way to
another
do
to
it.
find out whether to discard an echo or keep going with it, but it's overall a paltry sum to give.
I think that is actually objectively false. The amount of experience that it takes to go from 20 to 25 is almost the same as it takes to go from 1 to 20. And so think about it this way. For the price of spending 50 tuners on a level 25 Echo, you could have spent 80 tuners to get 2 to level 20. And that's 80 tuners. So for the price of 25, a level 25 Echo, and spending 50 tuners, you could have gotten 2 to level 20 and spent 80 tuners. The math doesn't check out here. That's not really a paltry sum. And you're now rolling 8 substats versus 5. And that means you have a way higher chance, right, of getting better stats if you're rolling 8 of them versus rolling 5 of them. And then you have the whole thing of, if you have a piece that's at plus 20 and there's no crit on it, is there a point in rolling the 5th substat in the first place and spending all of those tubes, taking something from 20 to 25 when there isn't a crit roll on it in the first place? The answer is, for your DPS, probably not.
I'm not saying one task field should allow you to instantly level up an echo, but when you account for the likelihood of having to reroll echoes for better subs, and I'm not even talking 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5, I'm talking just to get 3 out of 5 good subs. It could take days or even weeks to complete just one piece, all because of the lack of experienced materials. Funnily enough, a few patches ago Kuro actually bumped up the drop rate of task fields, but people are getting more echoes than the materials necessary to actually make use of them. I think all of us day 1 players have an issue with our echo inventory being full of stuff that even if we merge them for new echoes, there's just not enough EXP to level them up. Speaking of which, as a day 1 player, most of us should be fine in terms of materials, and I'd assume everyone has their characters geared up to a reasonably adequate.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't call this reasonable, but
to a reasonably adequate level. Of course, it takes a while for a player just starting out to get to a position of endgame status. They have to play for a long enough time to rack up enough cumulative wave plate generation. But even for day 1 players, upon release of 2.0, a bunch of characters got new echoes and echo sets, meaning we have to make brand new echoes for those characters. Not to say existing sets got power crept, but if there's a better option, people will naturally want to go for it. Every player basically has to go back to the mines and farm. Depending on your luck, it could take a matter of weeks before you get a half-decent set. For example, anecdotally, I've been exclusively farming Carlotta's echoes and I'm still not at a full.
Oh, that hurt. Oh, I just felt my balls shrivel up for a second there. Oh, just felt my balls shrivel up for a second there. Yeah, that was a little rough.
Still not at a full set for her. I might just be unlucky or my standards might be too high, but I've gone through at least 30 or so pieces.
It's not unusable. It's okay.
At least 30 or so pieces and burned through my entire nest egg of experience.
As I said before, if you're just plus 25 banging random pieces, hitting it with the boom, and then you're not dumping pieces, you're not leveling them incrementally and then dumping pieces when they're not good, well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You are going to run out of echo experience. Because like I said before, for the cost of getting 2 echoes to plus 20 and spending 80 tuners, you're instead taking 1 echo to 25 and spending 50. And so it's pretty clear when you're going to run out of one faster than the other.
Echo farming through only Tasta fields is not the most economical use of your energy. It essentially forces you to roam around the map and farm the echoes you want. But with the drop rate only being 20% at base, you could farm for like an hour and only get maybe 15, of which perhaps only 1, 3, or 4 cost has the correct main stat you want, and then you'd be lucky to get a decent roll from it. Echoes are spread really far apart from each other. Even after giving us new methods of transport in Renacida, it takes a long while for you to get what you want. 4 cost echoes can be even more tiresome since you have to wait between respawns. You can of course alt tab and do something else in between, but bottom line, it's tedious for players who don't have the time or patience to spend hours a day running around the entire world.
I think it would make sense to mention the 4 cost pity here, and it would also make sense to mention the echo food and then farming routes as well. All things in my video, by the way, on the ultimate guide to echoes and how to farm them.
So having said all that, what are some options to improve the echo farming process? First and most pragmatic one, more ways to level them up. For players who are willing to farm echoes every day, it doesn't change the fact that they don't have the experience materials to level them up. We need more. Even though Tasta fields give echo experience already, I think it would be a big help to add an echo experience map in the simulation training. You know, the place where you farm credits, character, and weapon XP. That way people who don't really care for tuners or echoes can allocate their wave plates to just echo experience for a better conversion rate. It's just too inefficient to spend 240 energy and still not get a single echo to max level. Solution 2, give us something to do with echo fodder.
I guess this is the ultimate take for me, right? If we're at the point where we're intentionally not leveling things efficiently, guys, think about it this way. Let's just say we're playing Genshin Impact and we just leveled an artifact that's double crit, and we level it up to plus 12, and every single roll has gone into flat defense. Should we just level it up to plus 20 from that point and waste experience? Or should we just throw it away if every single roll has gone into flat defense? If we're doing that in Genshin Impact and we're optimizing our experience and our leveling, why are we not able to do the same thing in Wuthering Waves? Why do we just plus 25 bang random things and then we talk about how we don't have experience? I guess that's the part that's kind of confusing to me, because we wouldn't do that in any other game. Like, we would see garbage substats appear or garbage substats get upgraded in the first 3 rolls, and we would just stop upgrading the piece. But in Wuthering Waves, like, we just are so commonly leveling things up to plus 25, essentially wasting experience on pieces and upgrades that we're never going to use, and then backing up into like this whole conversation of now we don't have enough EXP when we're intentionally doing things that are wasting our experience in game, when we know there are better ways to spend it. He's mentioned them in the video.
Right now, the only thing you can do with echoes that have unusable main stats is a databank merge, which is helpful, don't get me wrong. Every 5 echoes nets you 1 more chance to reroll an echo, albeit you have no control over what echo type or even set you want. But once you get that new echo, it still doesn't address the lack of experience to actually level it. Now, in light of echoes being endlessly farmable, allowing fodder echoes to give experience isn't as straightforward of a solution to implement, since that would allow you to pull an MMO grind and farm for 8 hours to max a character. For better or worse, WUA is a gacha game, and gacha games don't want you to play endlessly. Not without spending money at least. All the same, a middle ground would be nice. In my opinion, they should allow echoes to provide experience, but to account for the potential abuse of that, maybe make it so only echoes of the same variety can level each other up. Let's say you're trying to level up a chess mimic. Only chess mimics can give experience to other mimics. You can still technically farm forever, but it won't be as easy. I think that constitutes a fine balance between giving players more access to experience without giving them too much. Solution 3, depending on who you ask, this might either be a good take or a bad one. Perhaps allow us to run an off-piece, so instead of a 2-5 set effect, make it 2-4. And to prevent players from abusing off-piece 4 cost echo actives, main echoes need to be part of the set you want activated. The benefit of this, along with the fact that you only need to get 4 instead of 5, is that it gives actual purpose to echoes with main stats on the wrong set. For example, Havoc damage bonus on a Glacial set is totally useless, but with this change you now have a reason to keep those pieces. And before you say that's overpowered because now every player can instantly complete 3 cost echoes without even trying, Remember, there's still a shortage of EXP. All it does is make farming main stats not quite as time consuming.
The last one about the off piece, it's interesting, but it's also like now you actually never need to throw any piece away. And so the whole inventory clogging concern would just be amplified to infinity and beyond. I think it has the potential to introduce more problems than you might actually think, because now it's like any piece on the right element is now usable. And I do think that it would cause some inventory clogging problems. I think the system that we have for now is not the worst thing ever. I'm going to be honest. I've geared more characters faster in this game, and I think a lot of people have geared characters faster in this game than literally any other gacha game on the market. And I'm going to be honest. I do feel like a lot of these problems that we're talking about don't really exist, and we already have the malleable echoes as well. I think it would make sense to maybe mention some of the malleable echoes here where Kuro has directly addressed the issue, and they give you like 4 or 5 every patch. Maybe 5 or 6, to be honest.
Solution 4. Give us materials to either disenchant an echo, or maybe a special tuner that guarantees a certain substat. Once more, to ensure it's not too overpowered, they can make it only obtainable a finite number of times per cycle or version. Generally, you want to get an echo with 3 out of 5 correct substats. High and low rolls don't really matter to most people, at least not for me, and I'm a min-maxer.
Bars, let's stop lying. You're not a min-maxer. Bars, if you were a min-maxer, you wouldn't be doing this. You're not a min-maxer, dude. I'm a min-maxer. I don't do this. All of my characters are geared. I have an excess of echo experience, and I'm merely lacking tuners. That's what min-maxing does for you in this game. This is not min-maxing. This is not min-maxing. Stop it.
I can't tell you how many 2 out of 5s I have. A special tuner to give us a designated substat would make the grind much more convenient. For example, if you're 4 substats in and get 3 out of 4 good ones, you can force the last one using the special tuner to get a 4 out of 5 piece, like if you have crit rate, energy regen, attack percent, you can make the last one crit damage or something. If they are willing to make it farmable, they could have it so every 100 echoes you merge, you get one of those special tuners. Kind of like how in Pokemon buying 10 Pokeballs at a time gives you a Premier Ball. Or they could do a recurring event where you can farm that special tuner during that time frame. People will be begging for that event to come out every time a new echo set's released.
Ladies and gentlemen, like we mentioned at the start of the video, you only have to roll a substat once in this game. You don't have to hit crit damage 4 times. You don't have to hit crit rate 4 times. You don't have to hit attack 7 times. You have to hit each substat 1 time. And the end result of that is it's much easier to gear characters in Wuwa and gear them optimally compared to so many other games on the market. And at this point, I do genuinely believe that making it faster, it could really just delete the grind for so many people. It really could delete the grind for so many people. The problem for most players at this point is literally a lack of tuners, and that is the main thing. That's from somebody that's min-maxing. That's from somebody that is min-maxing their echoes. And if we're not doing the things to min-max and optimize our leveling process, and now we're talking about the issues that are arising from that, again, I do think the issue is self-inflicted.
Solution 5. Increase the echo refund, as in when leveling one echo with another, instead of returning I think like 70% of the experience, if they can make recycling a bit more generous, like 85%. The whole idea is to give players access to more XP, which is ultimately the central issue with endgame at the moment. Echo leveling is a painfully cumbersome bottleneck in progression. Solution 6. Make it so we can decide what echoes you get when merging. I'm not really a fan of the randomness of that whole system. If you could at least narrow it down to what set, that would be nice. We already get random echo boxes from rewards and whatnot. Being able to choose what echo set you want is more of a quality of life thing. You can obviously farm a specific echo set by picking and choosing what mobs to farm in the overworld, so it wouldn't be too overpowered to enable that for the merging system. To balance it out, they can raise the merging cost from 5 to 8 or 10 or something.
Yeah, I think maybe having more expensive merging available. More expensive merging, and then maybe you can target a specific set. That doesn't sound like too bad. That sounds kind of cool. I don't think there's anything wrong with that one. That's probably like, I think the best suggestion that I've heard across the entire video. Like double the cost, but you get to choose the set. Yeah.
Okay, those are my suggestions for how I would improve the ecosystem. To reiterate, I don't think the system's horrendous in its current condition. From a time consumption standpoint, you can complete your daily grinds in literally 2 minutes by completing a task field twice and calling it a day. My complaint with it is not the work it takes to put into it, but how gated and slow the progression is even if you're willing to put in more work. What do you guys think though? Do you like the ideas I post, or do you think the ecosystem is fine as is? You're welcome to share in the comments.
Yeah, so I guess my final take on this video is that I do genuinely think that a lot of the problems that he's talking about, there are very many active ways to mitigate every single issue that Vars is bringing up in this video. And the fact that we kind of hand-waved the methodology and the things that would prevent these problems from happening in-game, and just kind of like hand-waved them and said that it doesn't really matter. That's kind of like where my idea that all of these issues are self-inflicted is coming from. Because we know exactly what we need to do to prevent this whole EXP problem. We're simply choosing not to do it and then complaining about the issues that are occurring. And this is the thing. Gacha games are about resource management. And when we have a method or a tool to manage our resources better and we choose not to use it and say that we're a min-maxer, I can't really buy that. And that's the thing. A lot of the suggestions are based off of us not optimizing our resources and asking for more. And when we sort of have a lot of people saying that this is the fastest game that they've ever geared a bunch of characters for, I mean, right? What are we really drawing the comparisons to here? And we've already talked about the dangers of eliminating the endgame grind completely. What incentive do people have to play? This, in a lot of ways, a lot of these suggestions would just eliminate the endgame grind. And if everyone is, you know, at fully geared sets, fully optimized everything right off the rip, then yeah, in a game like this, where it's supposed to be live service, where you're supposed to play every single day, you already know what's gonna happen. People are much more likely to quit the game. And, you know, that's not good for a game in this type of industry. With that, let me know what you all think. Peace out.